Okay, so today, got to represent. We have the homies from Collegium. They're down the street out here in Costa Mesa. Some of my favorite footwear right now for the dailies. I actually really like these shoes because they put their spin on Margiela cracked paint on like a loafer type shoe.
I like that.
These are great. They're the dailies. Right now, I got some made in Japan, exclusive colorway brown flare knee pants I got from the homie Paul. Shout out Paul from Drip T. I got a little Capital Boro jacket. And what do I have? This is like old Planet Hollywood t-shirt. I just wear inside out with the tags cut.
Nice.
And what else? It's got my Chrome Hearts dice bracelet that I keep on at all times. And lastly, shout out Town Dust. This is my favorite hat of all time right now. And yeah, that's what I got.
Fire. It's cool.
For sure.
I guess my turn,
Yeah, let me see. What do you got on?
Shoes, Wales Bonner. Probably like my most worn shoes right now.
Respectable.
They're pretty cool. Acme Studios jeans, Basket Case Gallery jersey.
Okay.
Got a little hot recently, so I'm trying to wear something.
Stay cozy.
Yeah. Little vintage Oakley watch. What else am I wearing? D squared hat, and then Stussy necklace I got that they just dropped at the Hawaii store. So it's pretty cool.
Let them know.
Yes, sir. All right. So I think just start it off. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, kind of what you're about, what your showroom's about, kind of what you're doing.
Well, hello everybody. My name's Tony. Welcome to the Hidn showroom. You're saying it first and foremost. I've had my background in archive design clothing from 2016 to 2019, working at Horror Vacuo in Los Angeles, and that really helped establish my love for not just clothes, but particularly clothes that have an impactful impact on the history of art, design, and basically stuff that we put on our body. Right? That's a common thread that ties us all together today. This showroom has that in its DNA with how we curate our secondhand and our brand new merchandise. So half of our store is carefully selected secondhand goods that are sourced from all over the world, featuring brands from Europe, Asia, even America, so far, so forth. And then the other half are wholesale accounts that we brought on into the showroom that I think represent the new age of fashion. So we mix the new with the old. For instance, from South Korea, we're a retailer of popular streetwear label Thug Club, as well as Souvenir from Saigon. We're trying to represent different facets of fashion all over the globe and just bring it out here this is my home, Orange County.
Yeah. I think it's super cool. It kind of reflects like part of like how Orange County is kind of like a melting pot in itself. And
100.
I think your store is kind of a melting pot and showcasing brands like kind of all across the globe. I think it's super cool.
For sure, man. Shout out Melting Pot. That's one of my favorite collections from Undercover, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Fire. Could you even expand into a little bit about how you even like started this whole thing? Like, I kind of want to know, like, take it all the way back. Like, what were you doing before this that led you down in this path in the first place?
So when I was working and just even being in LA all the time, I always thought to myself, how can I bring this back home in a way that represents myself and with its, the tweaks that I would do personally, right? It's like, okay, so out in LA, they have this type of vibe. Personally, I would do this a little bit different. I wanted, for myself personally, community is a very big part of what's important. I think the people that come here recognize that it's, at the end of the day, I don't really care if you buy something as much as I care that you have a good time and that we're able to build a little hub for people to come and hang out, right? I would say I can't even count on top of my hands how many near and dear friends I have in my personal, very close circle that originally started off by just coming in here as clients, customers, so far, so forth, right? Because I think in here, really organic bonds are formed. And sure, we connect over fashion, but at the end of the day, it's just people being people. And I guess that's that. But I started during COVID, man. COVID was really a great opportunity to just try something. Not many people know this, but originally this showroom was the proof of concept we had. It was called, we didn't know what to call it, so we called it a Hidden Street Market, kind of like Dover Street Market. We took their logo, we flipped it, we had an IG, cool. we got some traction, and then they actually banned our account. Really? They copyright striked us essentially on IG. But then that's when I was like, wait, maybe something's being done right. Maybe I can actually try this and maybe just build a foundation in Orange County. and then just grow through that, elevate the experience, and just make something that I'm comfortable with, that people can come and also, enjoy what I bring in.
Mm-hmm. Super interesting too. I think in talking about how you curate stuff too, could you kind of dive into that and how that mixes like with your own personal style? Because at least in my personal experience, just in my job field, I think it's kind of difficult sometimes to like separate my personal style with like, identifying like what actually sells in the store.
Yeah.
Like I'd hate to put stuff that like, maybe I might not personally wear, but I know it sells well in the store.
Yeah.
So kind of like having the balance of like, having stuff that you like, but also like knowing what sells in the store.
Man, I think that's actually one of the most difficult parts for having a store curation, balancing what you like versus what other people will buy. Mm-hmm. It has to be a healthy blend of both. I think if I were to just put the store full of only things that I enjoy, nothing would sell, or very few things would sell. So it's important for me to stay up to date with current trends, what people, what kind of silhouettes, styles that are popular, not even just here, but in different countries, and then try my best to blend both my taste and what people more mainstream would enjoy, and bring it to like a nice, healthy medium. We don't always get it right, but in a sense of performance, like some things stay here longer than they should, but I think as of late it's been pretty healthy, and it's nice to see things come and go. So I can put more stuff on a rack for people to either appreciate. Like for instance, not everybody can afford like a $10,000 Issey Miyake 1996 cargo jacket, right? But with introducing new brands that with wholesale accounts, I think more people are down to drop like $200 for a pair of pants. Like that's a lot more accessible. I think that's a lot more realistic. And at the end of the day, I still also appreciate these new brands that I'm bringing in. So yeah, it's just a healthy balance.
Yeah, I think it's like super important to figure out that balance of like finding mainstream stuff, but also having a store that's like, oh, no other stores have this piece, having unique stuff, but also having like more accessible stuff. What do you think about like your customer base? Like, is your customer base pretty like variety? Do you have mostly like rich clientele? Is there certain like ethnicities that come in?
It's honestly such a mixed bag, man. I get so many people of like Latino descent. I get a lot of Asian people. I'm getting a lot more white people. It's just like Orange County. It's just like Orange County. It's Orange County, man. It's everything, cool. Everyone. That's and cool. It's so nice because then I get to connect to so many different people. And again, we can all just touch base back to clothes, but then everyone has different stories too. Because I like to also ask people, well, how do you get into clothes? What brought you here? And more often than not, it's a different story. And I take that, I ingrain it, and then, I keep it in mind for when I'm trying to strategize to how to market to people overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's like, it's funny to like think about it like that. Like to some people, clothes are just like stuff you put on your body. Yeah. But like to a huge community like you and I, like clothes are a huge part of our lives that, draw big memories and like promote, big discussions and stuff. I think it's super interesting.
100%, man.
I know you mentioned, you brought a couple of recent brands in here like Thug Club. I know you recently added Haven Court, shout out to Keezy. Mm-hmm. Are there any like future brands that you'd like to carry in the store in the future?
Yeah, I think there's some brands that are just near and dear to me that I just really appreciate, that whether or not it performs well, I want to bring in, such as Ready Made from Japan. They're so cool. Our next big brand, I don't believe that we're going to bring in, I'll spill the beans right now. They're really cool. So this is a brand called AFB. They're from Tokyo. They're super sick. They're big in their local scene, but not necessarily made their biggest mark internationally yet. But then the owner, Yuta, longtime friend, he actually used to own an archive store in Tokyo called Empty Room. He's since branched off and focused on AFB, his own brand that is, to me, an encompass of all of his interests and his expertise working in the industry. He's worked with Keizo Shimizu, who made needles. He's worked with Aesthetic Glamour. I believe he's right on the mark and will be what we consider an archive brand that people know and love in due time. And I'm really happy to introduce it out here in the Western Hemisphere because his stuff is sick. So I'm really excited to share it with you guys when we got it coming in very soon.
Awesome. I think I want to dive deep into archive in general, that term.
Yeah.
I know you've been asked this before, but like, when you think of archive, I think everyone has like a different definition for what archive means. And like, obviously you have an archive store. Like, what is your definition of archive for the, you know, the people that may not be super into stuff like this? Like, what would be your definition for it?
I think, unlike vintage, archive is unique, where I don't think it has a clear objective definition just yet. Whereas like with vintage, people say, oh, if it's 20 plus years old, it's vintage. For me, archive could be anything that's just a past season, something in the past, like even a post that you post on Instagram today, you can archive it and it will technically be an archived post, right?
Interesting.
For me, it's just anything that was, right? And even something that released today, next season, is something that was.
Yeah.
And I would, in my heart, consider it archive. And I'd be more than happy to introduce it to the store because I feel like it would still be in respect to the brand's DNA.
Yeah, I think what's like, some people consider certain brands archive, you know? So it's like, how do you bridge the gap between like, are the most recent releases from these specific brands, is that still considered archive, or do you have to wait a couple of years for it to become archive? Like, I think it's like everyone has a slightly different definition.
For an archive brand, to me, like if you're going to say, oh, wait, this brand's archive, what comes to the top of my head is more often than not a brand that may not even be around anymore. You see a lot of brands popping off that people consider archive brands, such as Le Grand Bleu, LGB, If 6 Was 9. These are brands that may or may not be doing stuff anymore within respect to now. And sure, that's a brand that is archive. But then to consider a piece that's archive, I think the designer could still be doing stuff like literally right now, and I could consider it archive if it was in the past collection. But again, you know, that's just me. Some people might have a completely different interpretation. Yeah. But it makes it easier for me to, I guess, digest.
Yeah. I feel like it's super interesting to me. I think in the most recent years, at least from what I've seen, especially like kind of during the rise of COVID and since past, rep culture, I think, has become super, super prevalent.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I kind of want to just get your opinion on rep culture. Do you not like it? Do you not mess with people that wear reps? Are you okay with it? And then has it affected like your job at all? Have you found trouble in finding stuff now? And how did you learn to like actually separate reps from real stuff?
I think when it comes down to like the person, like if someone walks in here wearing reps head to toe, I really wouldn't mind. I don't care. It makes no difference to me. I think the idea of reps being stigmatized is very much so very rooted in Western culture. Because that was a big eye-opening moment for me when I first went to Asia and just toured across whether Vietnam, Korea, Seoul. You see a lot of people wearing like fake box logos, stuff like that. No one bats an eye because at the end of the day, it really is just clothing. But when it comes to the respect of work, it can be a little bit difficult. Let's say somebody wants to bring in stuff to sell, they bring in a bunch of reps, and like I find out after the fact, I have to go tell them and try to like do the whole, that gets a bit frustrating. But, I'm never going to knock someone that wears reps because not everybody can afford a $10,000 jacket, but some people just want to appreciate it, right? I think it's important to recognize that, hey, you don't necessarily have to be rich to appreciate a certain style of fashion. But I think it also depends on how you frame it too. Because like if you're coming into a business trying to sell clothes and you're knowingly just selling reps, I think that's a bit dishonest. If you're a bit upfront with it, I respect that a little bit more. But it does get a little bit difficult because reps do get really, really freaking good. Yeah.
Interesting. So have you just kind of just self-taught yourself over the years just through experience of like identifying reps? Has there been any like crazy stories where it's like you've bought stuff or, people lied to you about
all the time. I think at the end of the day, excuse me, everyone in this room, we're consumers of the culture, right? So we've been there. We've been finessed. We've been fleeced. You just learn. It helped for me that I actually used to do authentication at Grilled for a few years prior. So that experience helped a lot.
Yeah.
And for any the one that would want to learn more about what are the telltale signs to legit check something, especially with clothes. The easiest way to go about it is to compare the watch tags of index tags, watch tags of what you have on hand that you're trying to identify, and compare it to what's available online through platforms such as Grail. Look at the tags, be like, okay, this might be a little bit too off. It's not like, oh, that's 100% fake or real, because sometimes it's really, really difficult, right? But it'll give you a much more educated guess. And then if your gut feeling's off, usually the price is too good. Yeah. And maybe it's like, all right, I'm just chill out. Yeah, I don't think I could purchase this,
you know? Interesting. Thank you. When it comes to just challenges in general, I know I'm sure it's not easy to run something like this or even start something like this in the first place. So what were a few of like your biggest challenges that you faced over the years of growing this, and maybe what's some, relevant challenges right now that you're facing?
Long story short, everything. But I'll sum down a few pain points that I'll go in a bit more detail about. I think first and foremost, building the right team. It's hard to find people that are as motivated as yourself, that being the brand owner into the brand, right? And then finding people with the right skill sets and, energy to synergize. Because some people just don't work well together, and that's just fine. Everybody's different, right? So finding the right people to work with, learning actually to find the right balance in curation. We're talking about, just flooding the racks with your own stuff that you'd wear versus stuff that other people would actually buy and wear. That was a long time in learning before I even got a little bit more, adept with it. Because at first, my initial curation was literally just my personal closet.
Yeah, I'm sure it's
I had
hard.
so many people, because I'm a hoarder, man. Yeah. I love clothes. So then to this day, my room is it's not a mess, but I do have an abundance of pieces that I'll just keep. And when I first wanted to open up the showroom, it really helped. It was like, okay, I can fill this rack, all these racks of all this extra stuff I have. But then, I found out this doesn't necessarily look so good together. There's no cohesion. Mm-hmm. It leaves for a kind of like it feels more like a expensive Ross than anything, right? And I'm not trying to do
all
that.
Over the place.
Yeah, so learning to build a curation of clothing was, to me, a very big pain point. Also learning how just to talk and deal with people. Like for instance, when people were bringing in stuff that they want to sell to me, it's like, I hate being the bearer of bad news sometimes when I tell them a price they don't want to hear. But it's like, it's important for me to have to learn to inform people like, hey, this is a business. We can't necessarily pay you like market rate because we have to be able to sell it too, or it'll just sit on racks. Because I've gone through that as well, where I'll pay someone the high because of a really dope piece they'll bring in, but then it'll just sit for like a year plus. I'm like, that wasn't necessarily the most business savvy move. So again, building on what your question, a really tough part of building business was the balance of, having a business mind versus doing something just because my heart tells me to do.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of both.
Yeah, it's tricky. Super tricky.
It really is, man.
Interesting. So, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you're doing pretty good. I think it's super cool I feel like you're like the only showroom in Orange County that is doing something like this.
I appreciate that.
Like it's super inspirational to see you building a community with what you're doing. What are your plans in the future? Maybe in the immediate future, what are your plans? And something along, 5 years from now, what's your plan? Do you ever want to like open a store, like another location in the future, another city, expand, something like that?
Dude, first of all, thank you so much for your kind words. It means so much. It's been a process, to say the least. I give it a little bit of time. We have another showroom concept coming, and I think it'll be a lot of fun to expand. I definitely want to, without giving out too much, I definitely want to give some representation to the Los Angeles County area because, I also have a lot of roots there. That's what started my passion and my livelihood into all of this, right? I'll tell you guys a little story. I remember I was really big into the Facebook buy-sell trade groups back in the day from like the mid-2010s. And there was this one particular group called Cartel Talk where I've made such incredible lifelong friends. And my friend is Cameron Cruel, who now works at StockX actually, we met up in person for the first time. He was in a group too. Well, we both just left the Supreme drop, and then we linked at round 2 when it was still around.
Yeah.
And he was like, yo, my buddy has this really cool store. You want to check it out? I'm like, all right, sure, why not? So we both pulled up to intersection of Pico and La Brea, and it was a cutty-ass area full of just auto shops, very low lighting, super sketchy, low-key. But, of course, in the midst, in like a tiny little quarter, but very hidden, so to speak, was what I will say is Los Angeles' very first archive store. What really built it all and set the foundation for a lot of people that had that same interest that I did back in that time. And I walked in, at that time, I knew nothing of designer archive. I knew nothing of anything besides streetwear because that's what I was raised with. I came in wearing, I had like a Divinity's tiger camo jacket. I had these Rothko Nothing Usual tiger camo pants. Like I had tiger camo head to toe. I had the CDG play, and not just a normal Converse. I had the Jack Purcells. I had the black one on my left foot. I had the Off-White on my right foot with the mismatch. I thought I was hot shit. I had like a tiger camo Supreme trucker too. I was like, oh, I'm so cool. Oh no, dude, I look like a fool. But I walked in, and first thing they said to me, they're like, what the fuck are you wearing, right? Like, can you imagine a shop owner just roasting you as soon as you step foot in the door?
Yeah.
Like, bro and his girlfriend at the time were just like, yo, here, we're going to roast you, but then we're also, here, check this out. This is a brand called Undercover. This is a brand called Common Projects. I was like, whoa. Yeah. There's like a whole different...
That was like your whole like start in like archive and everything.
I'll never forget.
That's cool.
So I'm going to give my flowers to Horvaco. So shout out Kel, shout out Miyabi. Yeah, that was a foundational experience for me.
Cool.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned LA. Obviously, LA is the center of fashion, at least in California. But could you expand a little bit on kind of just how LA is different to OC? I think obviously the whole goal about this is to shed more light on OC. I think it gets often overshadowed from LA. I think there's a huge community in fashion, obviously.
100%.
But I mean, maybe just kind of expand on, I know you're an OC native. So like, how do you feel the fashion scene is out here compared to LA?
Long story short, different. Because even in Orange County, we have so many different pockets, different, like South OC, North OC, you get towards the beach, it's a different vibe compared to here, compared to Santa Ana. Same thing with Los Angeles, right? You go to WeHo, you go to downtown, you go to East LA, so many different vibes. At the end of the day, to me, it's just different. But I do agree that Orange County is often overshadowed to Los Angeles purely because Los Angeles is like, heavily marketed in an international scene. That's what people know it for. It's the entertainment capital of America. I get it. But I do really want to bring representation back to, folks like us out here in Orange County because we do have a strong fashion scene. I see it every day when people walk in. Crazy fits. I love it. And I would, if there's one mission I have with having a showroom, it's to be able to put some light on the people that come in here and their interests too, right? Because it's not just Los Angeles. We got to represent Orange County as well. And you see it. I post people on my store, on the stores, IG stories all the time. It's like everyone walking in, people got some immaculate fits on. So yeah, shout out OC.
Awesome. I'm gonna run through a little quick checklist.
Yeah.
LA versus OC. I'm gonna just have topics I'm gonna give you, and you're gonna say, is
right.
LA better or is OC?
Okay.
First one, food.
OC.
Okay. Next one.
That's a tough one.
Culture, just in general, culture.
Damn, that's a tough one. OC. I'm
Really?
so OC pilled. I love how chill it is out here. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm going into this. I thought you were gonna say LA for everything, just because I feel like it's tough. I feel like OC does have a lot of good food, and I think there is a lot of culture out here.
I think partially because. I'm a very proud Vietnamese American. Orange County has the largest Vietnamese diaspora in the world outside of Vietnam.
Interesting.
And someone could fact check me on this, but that's the last I searched.
Yeah.
And, this is home for me. I live in, Viet Town, Little Saigon, so I love it. It makes me feel closer to, my fellow countrymen.
Yeah.
And the vibes out here are definitely infinitely more chill.
Definitely.
I don't have to deal with the 5 p.m. 405 traffic, 101. I'm cooling on that.
Yeah.
Out here, it's calm. You can be in your little bubble. It's comfortable.
That's like the biggest thing OC has is like comfortability. I think driving is so much easier, parking so much easier.
Yeah.
So what I say? What I say? Food, culture. What's another one? Let me think.
Yo, Cam, bro. We just take like the.
Yeah.
That was good though.
Perfect, Derek. Cool. Cool. So where are we? We were talking about checklists, LA versus OC.
Yeah.
I said food, culture. Another one, nightlife.
Nightlife. I'm gonna give that to LA. LA has some of the most fun events for sure.
I'm not gonna lie. I need to go out to LA more. I think nightlife in LA, I've heard, is very, very, very good.
It's both good for networking. I feel like at the network events, it gets kind of like cliquey and like not super fun, but it's good for like professional reasons. But then there are a lot of really dope cultural events like slow jams. Like there's some of the most fun art events. I'm really into like low key cocktail bars. Like shout out Golden Line in East LA. It's one of my favorite vinyl record bars.
Fire.
So like they're owned by Stone Throws Records.
Oh yeah, nice.
Super sick. So then they'll have people come in and spin from their vinyl library, and they just make some crazy drinks, and it's a good vibe.
I gotta go there. That's
So
cool.
shout out LA's nightlife.
That's cool. Nightlife, I'd say another one, nature. What do you think?
Orange County, man.
Yeah.
Biking through Irvine during COVID was some of my most memorable nature experiences in the state.
Beaches too. I thought you gotta say the beaches were the best in OC.
Quick pause. Someone mind closing the door? Yeah, because I know there's some noise out there.
Actually, I thought I'm just gonna change your SC card.
Cool. Another question I wanted to ask is, what is your formal like college school experience? I think like it's often a question brought upon at least my parents, you know, when exploring people in this industry. I think it's kind of different for everyone, but at least for you, I know you graduated from UCR, right?
Correct.
Do you think, like, looking back, it was important that you went there? Like, what you learned from it? And you think, like, for other people that are trying to do similar things to you, you think it's worth it?
I think to keep it 110% real, there's very little that I learned in college that has been practical to what I do in my day-to-day livelihood. However, there's so many people that I've met through the college experience that have been quintessential, crucial to what I do now. I can't emphasize that enough. So with my take on college, it's really important for people to go to, especially if you get to dorm and stay away from home, to learn to be independent if you've never stayed away from home before as a young human, right? And to learn to socialize and to make these connections, because the most seemingly mundane connections you meet through school may actually end up being super, super, super critical and helpful for when you're trying to start a business or doing anything with your work life, right? But with that said, I also understand that in the creative field, you do not need to go to college to succeed. I stand by that. I have so many friends in the industry that are thriving that have not had a formal like college degree. Because let's say you're a concert photographer, let's say you're a stylist, you don't necessarily need to go to school for that. You just need to go to YouTube University, build some good taste, and do your thing and network and build a portfolio, right? Like even for me, when I'm hiring people to work for like product shoots, editorials, I'm not looking, you graduated from the school. I'm looking at your portfolio. What kind of work can you do? Can you deliver, right? So that's my take on that. But with respect, let's say you're in like a health field, I'm sure you're gonna need a degree. You need a degree. It's like a prerequisite to get onto med school. So far, so forth. So it depends on what kind of lane you're taking in life.
So for what you're doing, do you think looking back, you were glad that you went to college?
Yeah, I'm really glad I did. But I'm also sure that if I didn't go, I'm sure I'd be fine.
Cool. So would you be able to expand a little bit on like your team in general, kind of introduce, I know you have a pretty small team, but maybe talk about all the different people that are into your team, what they do. And I mean, I'd love to kind of get a little like day in the life of what everyone does, especially you.
Man, dude. So when it comes to day-to-day operations, it's me and my boy Alex. He handles a lot of our YouTube short form content, visual media on the side of those things, as well as day-to-day operations with just the business, taking appointments, fulfilling orders. So far, so that's me and Alex entirely. But then we have a designated design team too for creating assets, videos, photo shoots, so far, so forth, that we onboard for a project by project basis. So shout out Alex, he's the best. I love working with him. And then for our design team, shout out Brantley, shout out Quan. They're everywhere. Quan's in Seattle, Brantley's in San Francisco. We got Matt Opina. He's down here, but he's moving around all the time. Shout out the boys. We have Usman also in San Jose. And yeah, we're a very intimate team. We're really small, but then it makes it a lot easier to manage for sure.
Awesome. That's cool. I know you mentioned earlier too, obviously being Vietnamese and stuff, and that being super prevalent in Orange County. Could you talk about how important it is incorporating your own culture into your work?
100%. For me, I believe my impact on trying to incorporate my ethnicity, that being Vietnamese, into the business is by putting some more light on Vietnamese brands. Like slowly but surely, we're going to bring on more Vietnamese labels that I feel like fit with the brand's curation and DNA and give them some highlight. For instance, we just brought on Souvenir. Souvenir is super dope, run by Tan Nguyen and Nui. They're fantastic. Before just having a clothing brand first and foremost, they have an IG sort of mood board S page that focuses on Vietnamese history and then putting it into pop culture, letting people know, oh, this is what's cool about Vietnam from the past, present, and future. And their clothes are sick. The tees that I brought into the shop are some of my favorite blanks that they made. Everything's cut and sew. They do all the screen printing by hand. They're so dope.
That's right.
And with that said, when it comes to the Vietnamese fashion scene, people don't hear about it too much, but they're cooking out there.
Definitely, yeah.
They're cooking out there.
That's cool. You've traveled a bunch too. You've been to numerous countries, right? And cities and stuff. What would you say are like some of your favorite cities and why?
Easy. Vietnam, Japan, and Korea. I think in that order. Vietnam is a whole different monster. I think that really taught me to understand what it means to hustle. It's like I thought just starting a business was like good hustle, but then out there you have young cats that don't necessarily have any resources at all that are building crazy communities, events, brands, and doing something to uplift their people. And I love that. I respect it so much. Tokyo in particular is my second home. I used to go to school out there. A lot of my best friends, they reside out there. A lot of people that help shape my worldviews, my taste, they reside in Tokyo. Tokyo is my favorite spot to just people watch, to trend spot, to learn what I should bring back here to California. And with that same vein, Korea, in a similar vein, their tastes are impeccable. I really love their nightlife too. I think of everywhere in the world, nobody has their nightlife on point like Korea. I don't know a lot of people know this, but a bottle of soju out here, $7-8 when you go into a spot, right? It's less than $1 out in Korea. So people turn up there. They drink that like water. I have a Korean girlfriend too, so she turns the fuck up. Cool. Yeah.
That's cool. Cool. Last question I have for you.
For sure, man.
I think in the most recent years, retail's dying, in my opinion. I think I just went into Best Buy the other day and like their shelves are empty. No one's walking around Best Buy. I think obviously it's a case-by-case market or case-by-case basis for different markets. Obviously, the clothing market's a lot different than a Best Buy.
Yeah.
But I think just in general, I think customer shopping habits are becoming more centered around online. So what's your opinion on that? And do you ever see physical stores dying out completely? And how do you combat that whole, habit in the first place?
I believe that a lot of big box stores are struggling for sure. Like stores that have the traditional model, like OG big box stores like Macy's, JCPenney, they're kind of going through it because who goes there when you go online, right? Yeah. But right now, I believe for retail, I think it's the age of smaller brands, like independent brands and artists that have really interesting, unique taste and curation to offer to people.
I think this is like the most easy time for small brands to blow up with social media. I think it's.
I agree. I get blasted by ads with small brands every single day. But then it's interesting because I'm a victim, man. I look into it. I'm like, wow, this is really dope. Like even Collegian, before I met the team, before I shopped there, I got their ads all the time. Like, they're not too far. Let me just mosey on over and see. And I believe that the shopping retail experience will never go away. It's just adapting to the new landscape of social media, the internet, aka the times. And for big box stores to survive, I think it's going to take a lot because they have so much more. They have stakeholders, investors, and stuff, so they're not as flexible to change things up and make it as directly appealing to, I guess, us, like the younger audience, right? It's unfortunate. I went to San Francisco for the Haven Court Johnson's leather pop-up a few weeks ago, and man, dude, I was staying by Union Square, and it was dead. A lot of stores are shutting. A lot of stores from when I last went were popping. There's so much foot traffic.
Even like malls in general.
Yeah, malls
are just dying. So.
Yeah, so I think it's going to take. I don't think it's impossible for them to step it up, but I think a lot needs to change, because I look at malls in South Korea are insane. So let me tell you this: so if you guys ever get a chance to go in the near future, there's a mall owned by Hyundai. Yes, the car brand called the Hyundai, and it's the most insane department store I've ever seen in my life. Some genius architect went and he was like, okay, this is going to be the new vision for malls in the world. So right now when you go into a mall in America, everything's very much blocky, kind of like straight lines and everything. The field of vision when you walk in a door, you can only see so many brands. The way that they're structuring the new malls of the future, starting with Asia from what I've seen, every store, every vendor has a different height. It's not just like a square layout. Everything's so different. When you walk in, you can see all these different brands at once. Everything has a different display, a different vibe. Now, if we're to take that same energy and apply it to malls out here, I believe we'd be infinitely more successful.
Interesting. That's super interesting. Do you ever see yourself closing down your store? Do you ever see yourself ever transitioning outside of like being an archive store and doing something completely different?
I believe archive will always, and I say always, have a part of the DNA of the store. But as I move forward as not just a brand owner, but as a business so far and so forth, I want to put more emphasis on having a more boutique shopping experience and carrying more brand new clothes with labels that I find are just really cool from, again, around the world, and just bringing it back here. More often than not, these brands have more accessible price points that people can buy into, and that's important to me, right? Because as much as I love seeing people come in and just also share the same appreciation I have for very expensive like designer archive pieces, I understand not everybody can afford that, and I have to run a business at the end of the day too. If stuff's not selling, we would of course go under. But with this new approach, having kind of like a hybrid mix of both brand new retail and secondary retail, it's been doing really well because I can still shed emphasis on like really storied pieces, like a 1996 bomber jacket that Robin Williams wore for the red carpet premiere of Flubber, or like a Yohji Yamamoto doing a collaboration with like a racing leather jacket company back in 2004, like things like that have stories. Like that's so important to me because that's what really got me into what I do in the first place.
Yeah, that's super cool. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I think I learned a lot. I think it's super cool to have this space in Orange County. And honestly, I think you're a big part in why I even got into fashion in the first place. I think having this space that, like you said, like has pieces that has super cool stories is really intriguing to me. I'm sure a lot of other people too. And I think it's really cool to see how you've come over the years and where you're going to go in the next couple of years. But really appreciate your time. And yeah,
of course, man. Oh, and I didn't answer that last question fully. No, I'm not going to be closing down anytime.
Fire. Awesome. Thank you, bro. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome.